A seasonal contest pits two competitors in a fight to the finish. But nature interrupts their competitive bloodlust with a terrifying surprise of her own. Fueled by whimsical memories of youthful vigor and black box pharmaceuticals, Roth protects himself and his work with hate, the good kind, and high-powered firearms. His adversary, Lucifer, brings little more to the contest than a spade and dismissive, self-righteous contempt. Residents from several neighborhoods gather. A pharmacist is belittled. An old man's sanity is questioned. Somali immigrants celebrate. A Seminole family's revelation is revealed. And a bloody contest none could have predicted nor seen in their most deranged nightmares unfolds. The neighborhood, nay, the country, will never be the same. Taking slow, deep breaths, Roth fought to master himself. He hated Lucifer with a passion he had for years, yet the appearance of the groundhogs last summer had exacerbated the rivalry, which, in truth, was born of a competition between thumbs. Green thumbs, that is. Each had endeavored to best the other year after year, and as the arms race, the boughs race continued, so rose the stakes. Roth observed that Lucifer, perched in an Adirondack chair on his porch, watched the unpacking procession with a dismay that bordered on horror as Roth extracted a bandolier from the trunk. He knew Lucifer was a gunophobe, that he had worked tirelessly while in Washington to support the passage of legislation that would disarm victims. Who else can be disarmed but the people who obey the law? Relishing every moment of discomfort he was causing Lucifer, Roth slowly wrapped the bandolier around his chest, making sure the grinning magazines caught the light of the frowning sun. Then, as slowly as he could, he withdrew his shiny tool from the Jag's curvaceous trunk, savoring every inch, watching Lucifer's face darkened with desperation as the glistening shaft grew longer and longer, and yes, longer. Slinging the semi-automatic AR-15 over his shoulder, Roth peeked under his overgrown brow at Lucifer, who was now on his feet, knobby knees knocking, pages from his newspaper languidly fluttering from his trembling hand. The sun had just gone down, and Roth was getting ready for bed when he heard a loud thunk in the back of his house, and then another, and then another, and maybe another, but really his hearing wasn't that good anymore. He quickly stumbled toward the back of his house, vehemently cussing the shouts of pain that sprang from every one of his crepitating joints. Losing his balance, he caromed off the hallway wall, loosing pitchers from their moorings like icicles cascading from a gable. Turning a bend, he bounced off an end table, sending a family heirloom crashing to the floor. "I never liked that side of the family," he grumbled, still hustling toward the ruckus. After slamming the banana clip into place with a great metallic click, Roth stuck the barrel of the gun through the window and opened fire. The bright muzzle flash lit up the whole backyard like a bright muzzle flash. In a nearby neighborhood, Somali immigrants cheered the discordant crackle of fully automatic gunfire, just like home. Unpublished reviews. Nothing can keep this magnificent story from becoming a #1 New York Times bestseller. Its author gave the paper's editor-in-chief an offer he couldn't refuse. New York Times. I laughed so hard, I wet my Huggies. Active, over 50. Beaux esprits won't nictitate while imbibing this Dionysian tale, but they may horripilate. The author must be immune to exorodespotism or azygophrenia to have poetized such a mordant tale. Abstruse, hippopotamonstros, sesquipedalian, quarterly. We knew the author would go far. We are so proud. Monthly newsletter, Eastern State Psychiatric Penitentiary. And this is the After Party. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to XIOOIX for gifting a total of 200 Protect Our White Baby dollars. Congratulations to you, adulations, and thank you, dear brother. In second place was the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Blue-Eyed Bear, financially gifting $100. Many thanks to you, dear brother, as well, and congratulations. You may financially gift on Entropy, which I will have running in just a moment, where you can also watch the show as well as the channel, which is it, Jared? NoWhiteGuilt.tv. Is that what it is? The Afterparty.tv. And also, you can financially gift on Cash App. Entropy is 15% to you. Cash App is 0. Comes right on through. You'll find both of the links in the description below. And as always the case, Mr. George and I are always sharing the financial gifts here on the After Party. Now, today, we are getting tapped into a crowd favorite, especially of all those mothers and babies out there, the one and only Clarion Wakefield. Now, Clarion, will you please introduce yourself to our esteemed community, those who may not know who you are? Tell them what you do, where they can find you, and then Mr. George is going to take us into this scintillating conversation. Clarion.
Hey guys. Wow, Jason, you're really your energy is really high tonight, so I'm excited about that. I'm Clarion Wakefield. I'm a homeschooling white positive mother, and I try my best to help our white kin to go free, become who they are. And pretty much you can find me on Telegram along with everybody else these days. At Clarion Wakefield. I think it's Clarion Wakefield Nationalist is the channel. I'll have to double check on that. We have a nice little community there. There's a join discussion, which is really nice. Some of the community members from here are there, and you guys have the best community members. So it's always really positive and proactive, and it's a breath of fresh air. After being in an anti-white landscape all day, you can go in there and have some positive exchanges with your kin.
Amen to that. Mr. George.
Hello. How is everyone?
It sounds fabulous, brother. How are you doing?
I'm good. I don't have the little thing on StreamYard saying the mic's hooked up, but it doesn't sound roomy. It sounds normal.
Sounds normal. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Look, actually,
I know. Yeah.
Tiny bit loud.
Oh, I can bring it down. That we can do. Is that any better?
Oh, that's a bit too low. So somewhere between where you started and where you went would be perfect.
I have to gently massage the little knob on the side of the mic.
Okay.
I hope that's family friendly to say that. But
yeah,
is that better?
It's perfect now. Please go for it.
Well, no, I was just saying, Clarion, obviously we spoke recently on the Christmas special, and then last year in 2019 we spoke Thanksgiving, but those were just specials where people came in and came out. I know you've had some popular going free appearances with Jason here, but we're delighted to have you on tap for the full hour to really talk a little bit more about what you do and some of your perspectives, especially given this time when people are so anxious and there's a lot of confusion in the air, a lot of fear in the air. So I just want to personally welcome you and say it's enjoyable, and we thank you for sharing your time, being a busy homemaker. And as I like to say on this show, I myself am the product of a homemaker. We were able to do that in my household, so I can tell you that it's a beautiful thing if you're able to do it. So we salute you.
Thanks for the welcome. I'm quite happy to be here. I love to listen to you guys. And like you said, especially at this time where people might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed by what's going on this week. This is a great place for people to be with the two of you guys, because you always have just the right framing to keep everybody moored when they're trying to unmoor us. So
Yes,
I'm happy to be here.
Good way to put it. I like that. And Jason, I see you changed to the background that was used a little bit, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. That nice waterfall, I think it is. So good choice. So keep everybody calm.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we'll just flow and see where things go. There's a couple of general topics we want to hit. But since, Clarion, you mentioned in your intro how you have some groups and you support each other, share some tips, and keep each other moored, as you like to say. I might have to steal that. I like that. Why don't you tell us a little bit more what that looks like?
I was talking to Jason last night about the show, and I was thinking a lot today about what it is that our family has done. Not so much in our group, in the little Clarion Wakefield discussion group. I think that that's just remaining aware that we set our own story, and we just have to keep moving forward and doing the next right thing. And we have the righteous cause, and that's positive enough. With my family, I was thinking about all the things that we've done to make sure that everybody is still feeling positive and safe and good. Sorry, I had a little bit of a tech problem here. And so when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the importance of our people knowing that the first order of business is making sure that you know that to spiritually buoy yourself and to care for yourself is to understand that we all need to be doing something. I feel like I've heard not so much people in the white positive community, but people just in my daily life talk about just kind of wanting to check out of, have you guys found that? Like people just like, I just want to be left alone kind of a thing, and they don't really want to confront what's going on at all.
Yep.
Have you guys found that?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been finding that a lot. And I was thinking, like, why, because this is not really my personality, but obviously that's something that we need to consider, because it seems like that's a lot of people's perspective, is just to kind of want to ostrich the situation. And I started thinking about it, that it's necessary to us, not even to the cause of, our cause or to society, but to each of us as individuals, that we really do need to be doing something, because it hurts us as individuals as well as a people if we do nothing, because it's just not part of our biospirit. Like you look back at the history of Western kind, and we're people of action all the time. So for us to just kind of like Netflix and chill, or whatever it is that our enemies want us to be doing all the time, it's just not, it doesn't fit us.
Nope.
And I think that doing something all the time that doesn't fit you spiritually makes you vulnerable to depression and to despondency. So I think that the first order of business is for us to try to help people to understand that checking out, as much as that might seem, I don't know where we get this message that it's like going to be more comfortable for us to not be aware of what's going on, but that it's not going to be more comfortable ultimately. So that's what I've been working on with just with my friends here here, in my normal everyday life. That's been a big thing of trying to explain why we should be paying attention instead of just checking out.
And then in your chat groups, what kinds of questions or concerns do you see come up, or what kinds of things do you all help each other with?
I don't really, I guess everybody that I kind of have conversation with, either in the kind of the general Clarion Wakefield discussion, which is just a small group. There's only like 25 of us or something in there. And then my group of friends that I've been friends with for 4 or 5 years that we meet IRL a lot. Everybody that I surround myself with are just really high agency, positive action people. So it's just like, people are just like, what can we do? It's not really a problem. It's more of like, okay, what's the next step? And a big question is like, how do we deal, or what's the best way to help people coming out of like Q and coming off a parlor, like figuring out the landscape that they're living in now that it's kind of all unraveling for them. So it's really, we're trying to help not people in our little communities, but help people come into the community now that they're kind of unmoored by, the reality that kind of fully, it's been exposing itself for quite a long time to them, especially, for the past couple of months, but then to have it fully unveiled on the 6th, and then the aftermath of what's being done to people who just like essentially showed up for a MAGA rally. We've just been working on trying to figure out how to help them.
Yeah, it's definitely tracks with some of the things that I see going on here. It sounds like it's more, you already have people, as you said, who are high agency. I think we may have lost Clarion, so I might have to repeat this when she comes back in, or maybe I'll just say, she used another favorite word of mine, buoy. I like the nautical themes. So unmoored, buoy. I like how Clarion thinks. See, we're off to a good start already.
Yeah.
Clarion, you're back in.
Yes. Did you see that? I'm sorry about that, you guys.
No.
I didn't hear what you said, Jared. I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, I was about to say something else, but when I saw you go out, I just gave a little filler saying that you also use the word buoy, and I like that. All these nautical words, buoy, unmoor.
Maybe I come from a seafaring people.
Well, yes, indeed, yes. I'd like to do more boating if we ever get back to a normal way of life someday. But
right.
at any rate, no, the bigger point, the more important thing I was saying, aside from our nautical terminology, was that it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is similar to what we do here. Certainly what Jason does, in that it's kind of taking the people who are the vanguard, the high agency people, as you say, the people who want to lead and affect those in their lives, and then equipping each other, testing each other, sharpening each other, so that we have the right perspectives, the right language, the right frames, and just the emotional strength to then go out and interface with other people who aren't quite there yet. Would you say that that's fair? It sounds like that.
Yes. And I think that people, including myself, are pretty excited, I guess, to see the opportunity, because we've all been working. I don't know. I know Jason's been doing this since he was in middle school. It just, when you work for a long time and you're just kind of, you're plodding along, and you're meeting one person, and it's great. It's great. I feel fantastic every time I open up the truth to even one person, but it can become hard, like hard to find the person to talk to, kind of a thing. And this, as difficult as it's been for the nation, and as difficult as it's been for the people who have become rudely awakened, it's like kind of an exciting panoply of all these people who it's like, oh, you know, the final moment has happened where you are starting to understand what we began to understand at some other point, and now we can help you along to the real understanding that you need. You know, it's just kind of like, I feel like, and I know that I'm not the only one, I feel like so much opportunity has opened up with people who, you know, even definitely 6 months ago, maybe even 6 days ago, I could never have really talked to them in a real way because they just weren't ready.
That's encouraging. I follow your Telegram group, and as always, we'll have all the links after the show. You may know, but it doesn't hurt to repeat, and we always have new people. We welcome new people. Maybe you're listening for the first time and you're in the chat and not saying anything. That happens all the time. So we're thinking of you, and we welcome you, and we appreciate you checking things out. So I will say, Jason and I have our own websites, and then as Jason said, we share the afterparty.tv. We are trying our best to catalog our work. We are serious about what we do, and we don't want it to just disappear with the you know, changing winds of social media. So we have websites, old school websites, and on those sites we post these shows after they're done. So all of Clarion's links will be there. If you're listening in replay and you're still on a social media site, you go over to the afterparty.tv and type in Clarion's name and check it out and see all of her links and things like that. So all that to say, I was on your Telegram group and you said something. You were hinting at this before, and I'm sure we'll get back to talking about the more personal kind of thing and helping people out. But to go a little bigger picture, just get your thoughts on this, because it was provocative the way you put it and seems to go with some things I think. You said something to the effect in your Telegram group this isn't really the Great Reset as much as it's the Great Reveal. I'd like to say kind of in the Wizard of Oz, the curtain's falling and we're seeing the man behind the curtain, and it's painful, but in the long run, it might be something necessary to change the era, change people's thinking, and get through this bottleneck. But what does it mean to you? Why did you write that? What's that all about, the Great Reveal, as you put it?
Well, I think that this is going to sound like a kind of a black pill, but this is not how I intend it. I think that it is clear, regardless of anything else, that it's clear that our enemies of varying kinds have a much more substantial control over things than most people credit them for. I believe that ultimately, all of the evil that is done to our people is done by Satan. I'm a very devoted Christian. I believe that ultimately it all is rooted in Satan, and that Satan uses particular peoples to do his work. And I think that as the conservative types that are getting their wake-up call this week, you know, they have for a long time been able to at least see the individual threads or the individual ropes, I guess, of the net that's all around us. You know, they're like very against abortion, and they're very against pornography, and they're very against the feminism, and they're very against degenerate things on television and movies and media. You know, they have all of these threads that they understand, but I think that it's going to be revealed that there are more threads that they don't even contemplate, because they're more they're less culturally obvious, and that they're also going to understand that, wait, they're all connected, right? Like the abortion and feminism are intricately connected. You can't take them apart. Or pornography and abortion are connected, or like all of these things all come back to particular roots. And that as our enemies are saying things like the quote great reset, that I think that it's going to be more of a revelation of who they are and what they've been doing. And the reason that to me is not a black pill, even though it is something that might feel overwhelming at first, is because you cannot do anything positive. You can't take any positive action. You cannot change your position until you know your terrain. And until we recognize who our true enemies are and what they have actually done and what they're actually doing, and put it all together, like the people this week are starting to do when they're seeing that, like, Facebook and Twitter and Google and all of these big corporations are really not individuals, even though they seem to be, right? Like everything is one big move. And once we understand that, then we understand how to move past it and have victory over it. So I think it's going to be revealed as they become more and more certain that they're able to reveal themselves in this reset. Then that will give us a better footing to reclaim what is ours.
Yeah, exactly. It's like those types have the right instincts on certain things. But as you were saying, the threads, we have to pull the threads more together. And that's what we're doing. We're here for them. We're here for them when they're ready. That's why we need all of us to lead each other to this and help each other out.
And also, one of the things that I'm finding with people on the dissident right is that I don't think that a lot of people give I don't think a lot of dissident right people understand the sincerity that the conservatives coming, flocking onto Telegram from Parler, for instance, the sincerity of which they believe what they believe, right? A lot of people, they use, everything is like, oh, they're just cucking, or, all of these different things that they're like, that these conservatives don't actually believe what it is they're claiming to believe. They're doing it for social acceptability, or to make nice, or whatever it is. But we have to understand that they genuinely believe the things that they have been molded to believe, just like I did. I didn't like come out of the womb understanding the multiple layers and multiple directions of anti-white propaganda and agenda. That's just, I'm like saturated with day in and day out. I didn't just know that. And so we need to be more gentle, I think, and stop insulting these people that they are somehow, they're not being sincere, because these are people who are sincere. They sincerely believe what they say. I'm not going to say what they say, because I don't want any, I don't want any problems for your guys' channel, but they are sincere in their belief, and us mocking them, trying to like get them to say something different isn't going to work. Because if you sincerely believe something, especially because, what I love these conservatives that are coming in, they're very principled people. They just need the right principle tweak. Do you know what I'm saying? They're going to be people who are very loyal and very active for our people once we can help them to the truth that has been hidden from them, that they are part of our people. That's right. Once they understand that, it's going to be like no holds barred on what we can do. And we just have to have a little bit of patience and a little bit of gentleness with people who have, had these mean pathogens just poured on them, and by the regime that they thought was, red, white, and blue patriotism.
Yeah, precisely. Hey, I am going to step out of the office for a moment, because if you can believe it or not, even though I have this magnificent energy today, as I always do for White Wellbeing, I'm that little baby just roaring every time I'm serving for White Wellbeing. I am excited. but I haven't had any coffee. Somehow I've been so busy today, and I look over here and there isn't any proper coffee for me. So I'm going to step out, but I will be right back with you all and everybody else here, and I will still be able to hear the show. So please continue, and I will return.
Sounds good. Enjoy that coffee. You'll have to tell us how you like it when you come back. But Clarion, to stay on that thread, just curious if you have anything more to say on that, because I think you're making an extremely important, salient point. And it's very easy when people are on social media and there's all the detachment, there's all the different kind of gathering around flags, which even that, it's a good instinct that we have, that we understand groups and boundaries, maybe more than the average person out there that's been told that, you know, there's no meaning in anything, kind of all the postmodern progressivist kind of stuff. But like anything, it needs to be tempered. It needs to be harmonized with other perspectives, or that instinct itself can go to an extreme and go off the rails. So a simple way to say that is I don't go in for the infighting. You know, Jason doesn't. Obviously, what you said is antithetical to that. Do you have anything to say that would be a firm but gentle reminder of why it doesn't really make sense for people who understand what we understand to just mock those more, what you want to call them, typical conservative MAGA people, but understand one thing that we say here, and you were saying yourself, is that humble yourself by thinking back to where you were 3-5 years ago, whatever it may be, before there were, significant breakthroughs you may have had, and you were on a path. And it's like, everyone thinks that once they arrive or they have a certain revelation, then anyone who's not caught up to them, oh, well, they're behind the eight ball, they're behind the times, they have to get with it. It's a very easy thing to fall into. We've all done it. I've been guilty of it. We all have to check ourselves with that kind of thing. But again, you already said something beautiful there. We don't need to harp on it, but just while we're on the thread, I want to make sure we get as much as we can out of it. So I want to just make sure, do you have anything that you'd share on that thread if you had the ear of someone who might be tempted to get into that kind of smarmy social media posting and make fun of the MAGA types, whereas, as you wisely said, we should be reaching out to these people. We should be sympathetic to these people. These are, as you say, principled people, and they're ripe for coming to a more full understanding of things.
I think that if people, every person that I know who is aware of truth, I'll put it that way. Every single person that I have ever heard speak or who has spoken to me, and including myself, there's always a feeling of isolation when you come to the truth and you don't have anybody else. And everybody's desperately looking for IRL community. People are even desperately looking for somebody just to have a direct message with, so that you're not this like voice in the void of a forum kind of vibe. And if people would remember that kind of desert isolation that they had before they started making those connections, you wouldn't wish that on any white person who could become who we are. So to think about it in terms of mercy, I think, is a good idea. And also to think about it in terms of shared joy. Because while at the beginning of everybody's waking up that I know, it is that kind of overwhelm and that wanting to be part of a community and not knowing how to find one. But that joy when you do find one, and the joy that you have when you reclaim your racial soul that has been taken from us, or tried to be taken from us, that's been, that our enemies have worked so hard to cover over, to reclaim who you are, and the absolute joy that brings, because that's who God has created us to be. we should want to share that with everyone. And you're not gonna share the joy of reclaiming your white identity by mocking someone else. That's certainly not it. And I would also point people to the idea of the question should always be, I think, are we a serious people? Are we doing serious work? Do we actually believe that our people are in danger, that we're 6% of the global population, and dwindling, and many of that 6% are not in a healthy place because of what's been done to us? So if we're serious about the need for us to reclaim who we are, well, then act seriously, right? Like, behave in a serious way. And we'll never be victorious without being serious. That's what I would tell people.
Yeah, well said. I'd agree with that. We have fun along the way, but that's what we do here.
Yeah, we do. Like, I loved, for instance, me and you and Jason and several other people on the Thanksgiving Comfy stream. And we had a lot of fun talking about like Thanksgiving traditions and our families and all of that specialness of who we are. But one thing that I wanted to make sure to say to you, if not during the stream, but at some point, is that the thing that I love about you and Jason, one of them, is that you guys are seriously working. Jason and I had this conversation last night, like, you guys are seriously working. I am a serious person who's seriously working, and I have fun all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't mutually exclusive. We do have fun, but people need to take seriously what we're doing because we are the vanguard and because there aren't that many of us.
Yeah, you need to have fun along the way. It keeps you
Definitely.
sane, it gives you energy to do it. It's the nature of getting up here on streams and talking about this stuff. It gives it a serious tone. If you don't go in for the gossip and things like that, because some shows are based just around that, and obviously we would never do that in a million years. It's just not who we are. Mm-hmm. But the thing that's unfortunate sometimes, I mean, we try to do different modalities, and as you were saying, and I appreciate it, on the Thanksgiving stream or holiday streams or other occasions where it's appropriate, then we'll have fun and it'll be lighter subject matter. It just depends. We try to hit different things. But in general, a lot of the time, because of what we're doing, it seems so serious.
Right.
And like, people will ask us, and I'm sure it's happened the opposite way too, like ask Jason about me or me about Jason. It's like what's something like we would be surprised about or not know about? I mean, it's like when Jason and I talk on the phone, we laugh a lot. We're like, when we first got to know one another back in early 2018, and we were first starting the show together. So naturally we had some not planned, but we had some pretty long phone calls that just naturally would happen when two people are getting to know one another. And we were just cracking each other up. It's, he has a great sense of humor. We have a lot of fun. And you have to get that in a little bit, but it doesn't always come through on the shows because of just what we're dealing with. But
right.
It is humming along there in the background. I believe that mirth and merriment, again, tempered with the right other things in your life, it's always about harmony for me, are actually values. I would go so far as to call them values. And I would say that the kind of fake comedy that we see that's based in nihilism and irony, I'm sure that, to get into the whole thing here, we can talk about a whole article about it, is actually the consequence of a worldview or a posture towards life. It's actually very negative and scared, that kind of irony, that kind of nihilism. I agree with you that there's a true robust appreciation of life and an acceptance of everything in life. It goes from the sublime to the ridiculous, and you can holistically kind of have room for it all, have it all play off of each other. That's a full life, and that's being a full person, and that's a beautiful thing, and we try to model that. So very much appreciate what you said. And Jason, how's that coffee? Some of the people in the chat are asking, Are we going to expect Jason Köhne coffee? Köhne coffee. I like that ring. The way we have Laura Towler tea, Grandma Towler's tea, actually.
Köhne coffee, yes, indeed. Well, I'm sure the anti-whites would show up with pitchforks and torches the very next day outside of wherever I was assembling the packages. But of course, I would be ready for that. Mini punji traps and things of this nature.
There's actually you'd have to watch out for a copyright thing too, because there is something, I think it's out of Hawaii, called Kona coffee, if I remember correctly. Does that sound right? I'm not a coffee drinker.
That might be right. Yes, I don't know. I haven't. I wouldn't doubt it though.
I think I've heard of a Kona coffee, but whatever you call it, people in the chat are asking. Maybe it could be more clandestine, fly under the radar, maybe not get taken down by the regime, but they're asking for your coffee brand, because now we have Grandma Towler's coffee. That's another thing too, Clarion. I'm amazed at you talk about agency, and anytime someone's like, well, things aren't what's going on, and if you're not like training in the woods, then you're not doing anything. As I always say, I understand that instinct, guys. You want to get stronger together and learn things together and have your group and do it in a safe and legal way. That's beautiful. But I'm talking about the types who think we're doing nothing, saying that we're just a bunch of nerds who talk online. Look at the agency. Look at what's happening. People are starting businesses. Books are being published. This isn't just political commentary. This truly is a culture emerging. Grandma Towler's tea and the Golden One's beautiful clothing that he's doing, and these books that we're publishing, and so many musicians emerging. And we just go listen to, anytime we've spoken to Jeff and Mama and Hireth and all the others from the White Art Collective and everything they're doing, it's incredible what's going on.
It really is, because like 5 or 6 years ago, I felt like I think was it White People's Press, I think, started maybe 5 years ago or so. But
we only know them recently, Tony's.
Yeah, like it's just been this like boom, which is amazing to me, because our enemies have brought the hammer down in hopes of crushing us, and it has had the exact opposite impact. Like in the past, I don't know, in less than a year, there was Grandma Towler's tea, which is by all accounts A, amazing tea, and B, Grandma Towler can't keep it on the shelves. I mean, everybody just wants to support our businesses. There's a new publishing house, newer. They've been around for several months, maybe a year or so, called Antelope Hill. Those guys are putting out like 3 books a month. It's just amazing. And then Jason has like, it seems like, what was your book before Prometheus Rising, Jason?
Before Prometheus Rising?
Yes. It wasn't Go. Didn't you have
Guilty?
Born Guilty? Yes, excuse me. So it's just like you have Go Free, and then you have Born Guilty, and then you have Prometheus Rising. That's just one person, And so I see this huge spark. Somebody said to me that coals go out when they're separated and get hotter when they're together. One of my conservatives on Facebook actually said that, because she's starting to understand the idea of coming together and not this individualism thing. So she wrote that on her Facebook. And I think about all the people who are doing things on their own, coming together and doing things with other people. And then most importantly, what you guys just did, which is give accolade to other people who are working. Like, I love that this community is not a community of competition, but a community of encouragement. And we are so good at doing that within our community. And I think that that's why we've had so much success under such increasing regime pressures, is because of the encouragement that we give each other.
Yeah. A lot of the times, I'm hearing people increasingly say this too, that when talking to others about what's going on here, is you can, at this point, just say, we're normal people.
Right.
We're normal people just standing up for normal things. This is normal. It should be seen as normal. I know, we're always tweaking our language, and I know that we all, fall into kind of the language that's out there in the air on the internet. Althea was just bringing up in the chat that even dissident, I know sometimes I use that, and it comes up sometimes, but it's maybe not the optimal term to use, because even that makes you sound like you're some, I don't know, some
Fringe.
some fringe group. You have to wear a uniform and have meetings and pay dues, and it's like, or you're like writing papers to try to like take over well, no, I shouldn't say that, but writing papers like the university professors did in the 60s to try to subvert the culture. They were the dissidents, or at least they were posited as the dissidents. I think those of us who know what went on now know that they weren't really the dissidents, the counterculture in the 1960s and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, even to take that on the dissident right, I would agree with Jason's sentiment that it's probably not the optimal term. And a lot of this is just, we're normal people. This is what normal people, for the vast majority of history, what their instincts were, where they go and what they do when they're not fettered by this constant psychological warfare daily. So
what do you call yourself? If not dissident right, what do you call yourself?
I call myself an advocate for white well-being, and in conversations, or I'll say I support white positivity. Being an advocate for white well-being always unseats. It takes anti-whites out of their anti-white narrative, because then I can see the instant computation that takes place in their head, and then the lack of the construction supplied them by the anti-white narrative by way of meme pathogens via all the routes of media and to a lesser degree education. So when they hear white well-being, advocate for white well-being, they want to say what they really feel, but then they realize they can't, because that reveals that they're really motivated by the desire to inflict injury. So they want to say, oh, I want to object to that. So you want to object to the well-being of white people. Very rarely do I have one actually say that they want to object to it. And then I instantly put them on the spot of bringing up, so you're then against the well-being of this non-white group and that non-white group as well. Or is it just white people that you are admitting that you want to victimize? And just put the words right in their mouth that they're thinking, and then there's nowhere they can go with it. And I've showed a couple times on air, on stream, conversations that I've had. One of the most recent ones that folks who are diehard and watching all of the hours of Going Free was a woman who was half black, half white, hardcore MLB participant, and we're not talking about Major League Baseball. And I turned the conversation in just a couple of back and forths, and I held the phone up to the camera. I was able to turn the conversation around and have her saying that she supports white well-being, simply by saying that I was an advocate for white well-being. And aren't you also an advocate for white well-being? I mean, you're half white and you want the well-being of the black race, and so that's good for you. Don't you also want the well-being for the white race? I mean, every white person is not a millionaire or billionaire. Every white person does not have perfect health or perfect looks. Don't you want white well-being? And then she wrote, fine, I support white well-being. It's just like, all right, if I could take a radical anti-white MLBer and in a couple of back and forths by referring to myself as an advocate for white well-being and just staying on that beachhead, then anybody can do it. It's very easy. Of course, the synopsis of the word, and I'm sure some folks are wondering, what's up with the word dissident? The bottom line is, when it comes to the word dissident, is that what does it evoke? And when it comes to all of these words, it's not what it says in the rule book of the dictionary or in encyclopedia. It's how it is received in people's minds. Our people. I don't care about everybody else. It's the ones we have to bring over. And what do they see? They see Molotov cocktails. They see people getting murdered. They see destabilized governments. They see different bread lines. they see objectionable things when they hear the word the dissidents. So that's why I caution against the use of the dissident or dissident right, because it evokes all of this imagery, and it usually is seen in places that are really war-torn looking environments, third world war-torn looking environments. And so they just emotionally, immediately don't want anything to do with that. Now this wouldn't be the case with anybody who is sort of neutral on the matter, and they're just looking for a moniker for themselves. But what you see with a great many males in these different white spheres, that white nationalist spheres and antique nationalist spheres and the like, what you see with them is they will lie to you, as they are wont to do, and say that, no, dissident just means X, Y, or Z. And then when you give them an alternative to dissident that does not evoke the same scary imagery, they object to it, like a dissenter. Why don't you be a dissenter? And I've done this with many of them, and immediately you could see a dissenter is not, well, no, it means the same thing. You are dissenting from the status quo. So why don't you just be a dissenter instead of a dissident?
You think it's a self-identity they've constructed for themselves, an image they want to project?
Well, they have no power, and what they want to project is, and conceal then, is the fact that they don't have power. So they want to project fake power by appealing to being these ugly images in people's heads, and powerful images, and very often it's the images from entertainment. So that's what they are attempting, and even video games, they're attempting to hide behind, put on a mask, and they know the result. So that's why they don't like dissenter, and instead they'll go with dissident. Even both mean the exact same thing, except that when you say that you are a dissenter to your neighbor, the normal person on the street, they think, oh, well, really, dissent to what? What do you object to? But when you say you're a dissident, they say, oh, this is somebody that I should be concerned, afraid about. Maybe they have some sort of power. Maybe they have some willingness to commit some sort of a heinous act. And these powerless people, as I've said before, in this case, they're powerless people reaching out to fictions to increase their power. They're reaching out to the imagination or to appear powerful. And it's really no different than the ones who are antique nationalists who reach out to ghosts. Powerless people reaching out to ghosts to help them. Hunting in cemeteries for allies to bring into the battle and make them feel more powerful. So
there's this like castle around that they put around themselves of facts from history, and they may dazzle people with knowing a lot about history. A lot of these people know a hell of a lot more about history than I do, let's say, but that still doesn't negate what you just said. It's great to have a sense of our rootedness, but you want an identity, it has to mainly be rooted in the present as a fulcrum for where we're going in the future. That's how you synthesize past and future, is by doing something meaningful in the present. But just like Clarion said, for those types of people, we still have to have sympathy, empathy, understand them. But of course, we have to defend ourselves from libelous attacks if things are said about us. And unfortunately, people, as I was saying, Jason, when you stepped away for the coffee, a lot of people still have this instinct to kind of rally around certain flags. And so you have these little groups and groups within groups and things like that. But I saw Jerome V actually said a few minutes ago when you talked about your phone call with the major league outfielder that you are a rhetorical martial artist. I think that's a good way to put it. It's very strategic. It's you put this frame and these words that you use where people walk into this, where if they really go against it, no matter which way they turn, no matter what they say, if they go against it, they're going to reveal an antipathy, an anger, a desire to do harm on their part. And it's going to show their cards, and it's a whole different ballgame. It puts them on the back foot. It changes the frame. And it can be repeated. That's the most important thing. It can be repeated. You're giving it to people. And anytime.
And, you know,
please go ahead, Clarion.
We have a community member in the discussion group who goes by the single letter M, and she posted screenshots of internet interchange that she had, where she was using the dialectic of going free, like, so beautifully. And she posted it for everybody so that they could also see how to execute it, because that's really what we need, right? We as individuals first need to understand it in a genuine way, and then we need to be able to help other people understand it in a genuine way, because we have lived so long under the anti-white narrative. You know, I was in a position today to talk with some people about letting go of the narratives that have been crafted for us and claiming our own. Just in conversation about America being a quote nation of immigrants, and quote Indians making America, and quote stolen land, and all of these things, that these anti-white lies that are heaped on us everywhere we go, and some of which we have taken into ourselves, like, oh, well, we're all immigrants, you know, that kind of idea. Helping people to unpack that which was very consciously created for us, but seems like a very organic understanding of history, but understanding that nothing that has been done to us is an organic, natural thing. It's all been very purposefully created for us, and we need to purposefully create an inoculation for that, and reveal the truth in a new way for us that has been covered over. And we can do that for people. And Jason has done that for many, many people through Go Free. And I saw anybody, it's really recent on the discussion channel, if anybody wants to jump over there and read through M's interchange. It's beautiful. She's like perfect. It could not have been done better as far as I'm concerned.
Please, yes, folks, go over there and read that. And when you have your own exchanges using the lexicon and dialectics of Go Free, share those. And this is so that people will learn and will be empowered. So that this one, when you're hearing Clarion right here be as powerful as she is, you could take Clarion with what she has learned of the lexicon and dialectics, and you could put her out in the world, and she could compete against, in conversation, against 100 random people from the population. And you could take any other person from the white nationalist sphere or the antique nationalist sphere, whoever you think is the most mentally adroit, the most linguistically adept, and pit them against a random 100 people. And I guarantee you, without question, that Clarion would bring over far more people. In fact, the others would bring over no one that wasn't already in agreement to some degree with white nationalism or a concern for Western civilization or Western kind. In fact, what they would do is they would engender animosity, hatred. They would prove, in quotes, the anti-white narrative. Clarion would be shattering people's conceptions of the world. There are people out there that think this way. They care about whites. They care about the most grievously affected out there, the most vulnerable white people. Here's a woman talking about it intelligently, passionately, sincerely to me. And the ones that she didn't bring over, a great percentage left, would end up being paralyzed. They would no longer feel that white people had no value whatsoever, and that every white person who cared about Western civilization and the well-being of Western kind was some monster from their narrative. No, they would then be paralyzed with indecision. Wait, is this white person, all those white people out there that are protesting, are those the ones that are evil from the story I've grown up with? Or are those the ones like that woman I talked to, and they would not be able to act? They would not be able to go crack your skull open as a consequence. So paralyzing those who would otherwise be our victimizers is every bit as valuable as bringing people over, but without question, being empowered with the lexicon and dialectics of going free is going to yield infinitely greater results. It has already, people are talking about it, and please continue to share your testimonials. It has already yielded and will continue to yield. And as we improve it, it will become even better at yielding the results of bringing our brothers and sisters over. But like Clarion, I interrupted you, and I apologize for that. But I just had to jump in because you're sharing something that somebody did in your group that is exactly what we should be doing.
And Clarion,
yeah, it was great.
There are people asking in the chat, the Telegram group, that is an open forum where people can type back and forth.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of difficult to, I'm trying to think. I think you have to, when you go to the Clarion, like it's a Clarion Wakefield channel or something, when you go there, you have to click, I believe, on the title of the chat. And then there's an option to quote, join discussion group, which is really what I'm about more than like the channel, but you have to have a channel to have a discussion group. So, I'm trying to think of, I think right. That's how it works. I'm not on there right now. But there's something, you go to the channel, the Clarion Wakefield channel, and then there is a little icon that you can click on, or you might have to go to the title and click on that, and then click on the icon that says join discussion. And it's really small. So it's everybody gets to know each other. It's great.
Okay. I'm taking a look. I'm seeing.
Oh, thanks, Jared.
Yeah. I see. I'm on your channel.
Let's have
it's just because we have there are women, especially one woman saying she's in a Bible study and she's in a very anti-white area. She's looking for some friends and contacts. So we just want to make
sure love to do, like, maybe starting in February. If anybody is interested in this, I did a Bible study with a new Christian on the Gospel of John. And, I obviously am not anti-white. And I feel like I have had the scales removed from my eyes, so I'm able to approach things properly without having our enemy's narrative control how I see things. I would love to do a Christian nationalist Bible study with anybody who's interested, like on Skype or whatever. Just if anybody's interested, I am, because I really enjoyed doing that with my one friend.
But is Telegram the best way for people to initially establish contact with you?
Yeah, it is. And I have whatever the setting is where people can message me. So they can message me or just reach out in the discussion channel or anything. Be great.
All right. Do that, folks. Just download Telegram on your smartphone. Can you have Telegram on the? Yeah, you can. You
can both.
Telegram on your computer, on your laptop, on your tablet. Right, probably goes everywhere.
Yeah.
But I do have it. So just download Telegram, and then you're just simply searching for Clarion Wakefield, and her group will come up, and then I guess where you click to join the group, and then you're in. It's that easy.
Great. Yeah.
And please do it. We need to have these sort of conversations, especially now. And I mean, really, the whole reason for having this wonderful lady on a real white positive sphere favorite, Clarion Wakefield, is that these are trying times. As you know, Mr. George was articulating that beautifully, and so is Clarion. These are really trying times. Because what we have here is a system correction. We have an inverse anomaly in the form of the new president, and over the next 4 years, the system is going to be correcting. Not because, as I was saying on Tuesday, not because there's some smoky room of people saying, well, now we have to do X, Y, or Z, but because we're human beings and we are subject to the exact same laws of physics that everything else in our universe are subject to. And so there will be, without even consciously directing it, a system correction, which means that there are going to be some objectionable things going on. There's going to be continuing censorship. There are going to be a lot of white erasure that is going to make our environments, especially here in the United States, look increasingly less Western. And we're going to need each other. We need to be our own poets, our own songwriters, our own singers, our own sculptors. We need to think for each other. We need to be cognizant, as the anti-whites are, of their speech. I've nothing but accolades for the anti-whites over the past couple weeks now, who I have witnessed on live television and I've witnessed on videos in the middle of speaking, stop what they are saying and then say, wait, no, that's not the way to say it. It's this way. And then say it the way that fits the anti-white narrative and make us look horrendous. Now, they usually don't have to do that. It's usually rolled out beautifully, but everything has been happening so wildly lately that even they are a bit caught off guard about exactly how to frame things. But if they can put their mind to and their willpower behind creating a narrative that is infernal and detrimental to us, then we sure as hell can put our mind to a narrative that is salubrious, that is bountiful and beautiful and healthful for us. And so that we have to do. One of the places to do that, to circle back, is on Clarion Wakefield's Telegram channel page. What do they call it on Telegram? Is it your channel?
I think it's a channel. I think.
Well, it's a channel when you just put out alerts. So I have a channel. I don't have a group.
I don't know why you don't have a group, Jared. I'm just saying.
I'm not a group guy.
I go to your channel. I wish you had a group.
I'm kind of a recluse.
Okay.
I have to go to my studio and write my songs. Like Jason has a channel as well. It's No White Guilt Alerts. So it'll tell you what is going on, upcoming shows. So I'm on your channel, Clarion. I don't know if I could give the ad if you want me to, but I'm not seeing, we'll figure this out though, but I'm not seeing how to get from the channel to the group. And the group is where people can join, and that is an open thread where anyone can type in on text bubbles. So that's the difference between a channel and a group. And of course, people have their personal accounts too. That's more private, but when you want to call someone or message. So there's kind of three ways to use Telegram: the private, the channel, which is just updates. You can subscribe to someone to see the updates, but there's no interaction. And then the group is a regular thread, for example, like a Discord server or something where people are having like a real-time conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And like Clarion said, you have to have, if people are following this, you have to first have a channel to then create a group. So she has a channel, but a group that stems from that. But they're two separate URLs or ats on Telegram. So trying to describe this in a way that any generation can understand, because Telegram
is really easy too. Like it's a really easy platform, and it's nice. Like, because I don't know, you can participate in the ways that you want to participate in Telegram, as opposed to a place like kind of like Twitter, where it was difficult to, you kind of had to do things you didn't want to do there, really. I guess just because of people interacting with you unilaterally and whatever. So
yeah, Telegram
funny. Is
I think there's a value to being there because of the certain interaction, but especially recently. But it's always been like this. It's always tended this way, unfortunately. I don't know if this is your experience, Jason's, but it does often seem, just in the general populace, to bring out, it's terrible. It brings out the worst in people. I mean, people are just brutal to each other on it. And I scroll and I just see so much negativity. And I really do encourage people, even, well-meaning people who are here in our circles, please check yourself a bit. And if you're only retweeting bad news, all this terrible stuff, as black as these times are, please try to temper it and send something positive. Just go do a Google search, not a Google search, DuckDuckGo search, let's say, and find a piece of beautiful European art and share it, or a positive story. because God knows our timelines need a little more of that on Twitter now as well. It's not being Pollyannish. It's not hiding your head in the sand. People actually need those nourishments for the spirit, especially during a time like this.
Yeah, we do. It's really interesting as people are talking more and more about the censorship and where they're, now we see that the Apple and well, I definitely Apple, I'm not sure about Google, are not permitting you to go where you want to using their phone. And there is a channel on Telegram, which is a fantastic channel, and it's ESC as in escape. And it's ESC to go back, escape to go back. And almost all of their posting is just beautiful art, nature photography, photography of European landscape, and or old, vintage photographs. It's like, that's it. And Apple will not permit their users to see that channel. And I think that says something powerful about how important it is for us to see beauty. When I pointed that out to a friend of mine, she said, "Are you saying that Apple's disallowing me from seeing beauty because I screenshotted what she couldn't see?" And it was like literally, I don't know, like the Alps or something. She couldn't, So it is. They know how important it is that we're edifying ourselves with the beauty of our lands and the beauty that our people have created. And that's why Apple's not permitting people to see it.
Wow, that speaks volumes. Yeah.
It really does. And please, Mr. George, what were you going to say?
No, I was actually going to ask if there were any closing comments, or if you were seeing any questions or chats come in.
Well, we're going to get those right now, folks. If you have any questions, make sure you tag me and Jared George in the live chat, and we will speak to those. They could be on the topic right now of what to do. Really, and if you want to financially gift, there is with your questions. Of course, there's Cash App and Entropy, and we have a few on Entropy. There's also the question widget there, and I'll take a look at that. But just very quickly, we are coming together and talking here about the challenges that are in front of us. Those challenges are things that are going to take place whether we get out of bed in the morning or not. Those galactic sized things. Do not trouble yourself for one moment with these things that you cannot have any effect upon. You cannot move them or budge them one way or the other. Worrying about whether or not this party is going to do that, or that party is going to do this, or in another week or in another month there's going to be a policy about X, Y, or Z, is not only a waste of time, but it's detrimental to your spirit and your health. Fear is something that will eat you alive if you allow it to. You have to use the energy of this time to use your life and make decisions, to get out into the world and make a change where you can make a change. And from that, you will be buoyed. We'll go back to the beginning of the show. Your spirits will rise, and you'll actually be changing the world to a place that you will be able to not only survive, but a place that you will be able to thrive. So there is no more sense worrying about a meteorite striking the earth than these things, politics and what they're going to be doing on some sort of global scale. I mean, that is so ridiculous to ever waste a moment's thought. I have always thought that was the silliest thing. And it, beyond being silly and childish, it is also detrimental. It gets in the way of us doing the things that we have to do to change the environment so that we can recapture our destiny. It makes you physically sick. It makes you mentally unwell. And then you end up in these scenarios where you are at odds and you're battling family members, or you're battling friends, and you're losing relationships with people who agree with you on everything. But because you are so high strung, so full of angst, so concerned about things that you can't do anything about, and your body, mind, and spirit knows you can't do anything about it, that you become like a caged animal and you explode about stupid, unnecessary things in your relationships, in your homes, in your relationship with your spouse, relationships with your children, and you have this sort of thing happen enough, and it can't be repaired. So we need to be focused. This is how you're going to have peace throughout the coming years, throughout this year, the coming months, the rest of the year, and the rest of the years ahead of us in our struggle to recapture our destiny, is to refocus your vision on the work that you can actually do to change your life, your mental health, emotional and mental stability, your spirit, your community, your family, your community, your region, and country, and our people globally. Focus on that, and you create the context in which you can have the best health. You can have all of those things you've ever wanted. We are not, just so that for those who are new, or you're listening live, or you'll be listening in replay, we are not on the verge of losing our country, any of our countries across Western civilization. We're not on the verge of it. Your countries, our countries, were not ours at any point in our lives. You were born without a country. That is a reality you have to accept. It is an innocence lost that took place for many patriots on January 6/21. This is something you have to accept, and then you move forward intrepidly into this wilderness for our people, so that we can again recapture our destiny. We will be the ones remembered for having the poise, the composure, the courage, and the tenacity in a time when it took the absolute apex of those things to move forward. When everybody else, richer people, smarter people, more educated people, more connected people, when all of them scrambled and were like roaches at the lights being turned on in the low rent district, when they were all doing that, there was this group that formed globally for Western kind, a single people with many countries. And that is why we today can look back to those ancestors and those forefathers of ours and say, that is why we recaptured our destiny. That is why we live in bliss and peace today. They will remember us for being those people. So get focused. Clarion is doing a magnificent job in our conversation that we had last night. She's doing a beautiful job with her family, with her children. Make sure you're talking to your children about these things. If they're going to be able to see that you are worried, they're going to be able to see that you and your husband, or you and your wife, are worried about what's going on in the world. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. Tell them that anti-whites dominate our society, and that there is a growing practice and cause around the world of white people who care about our well-being. And we have gotten out of this anti-white narrative that the anti-whites have created for us. And we're going to be penning our own story. We're going to be the ones who are going to remember the stories of our peoples, of our countries, of our regions, of our religions, etc. We're going to be the ones who remember it. We're going to be the ones who put the statues up to our heroes again. Tell them the truth. Do not continue to fall for this mean pathogen that, well, you can't kind of lay it all out there on them at the one time, because then they'll just turn around and they'll get so frightened, or they'll get so. No, there are other groups of people in the world that are frank with their children, and somehow their children are able to grow up into adults that function beautifully for the well-being of their groups. There's a group out there, though, Western kind, who tries to hide these things from their families. Don't tell them so much. Don't tell them that they're anti-whites. Let them go ahead and think. Do not let them go ahead and think. I've had conversations with people, and we'll get to your questions, and we're going to wrap the show. We're tap out. It's been a magnificent show with a splendid, beautifully minded, and beautiful person of a guest. But I hear these questions from or these comments from people that are saying, and the reason why is what I'm about to share with you, that they say one after the other, is because their parents were lying to them. And because in part their parents were lying to them. And depending on what country you're in, maybe their parents were lying to them a little bit as well. Do not tell your children, this is our country, or this government is ours, and that it is the legitimate extension of what our people created. The actual country is inside of you, son and daughter. Whatever country that might be. You little boy in Australia, that country is in you. It's not out in that land. It's not out in those beautiful seas and waters. And it's only there if we say it's there. The reality is that the governments of these Western countries have been usurped by anti-whites. And that's a sad reality. It's a heavy thing for you to know, son, daughter, but you have to know it so that you don't go out into the world looking back on your life, saying to yourself in horror and being paralyzed as a consequence of it. And then you end up telling somebody like Jason Köhne that you can't function because of it, that the country used to be so secure and peaceful and harmonious. And everywhere I went, it was our country, and the destiny, the future was secured, and it's not secure anymore. And what are we going to do? It was never secure. It was never yours. Your parents lied to you. Don't lie to your children. Let them grow up to be heroes, not fools who are trembling at the reality that the government actually hates them. I'm sorry about getting passionate, but I hear this too many times from parents in the different white spheres and different patriots, and they hide their children from everything. They tell them about fictional characters visiting them. They tell them all the time about all these fictional garbage, and then they hide the truth. And then you wonder why they grow up and behave like they're suffering from a post-traumatic stress syndrome their entire adult life. They learn that the fictions of little cartoon characters doing little magical things, they learn that those aren't real. No big loss there. But then when they find out that the government hates us, when did this happen? They can't function anymore. That's why we have political parties in countries across the West that have to have like flowers as their symbols, that have to have like cherubs to try to just coax what should be adults, but what are children in adult bodies into movements to try to do something productive for their people. Well, they can't, because they are paralyzed with fear and shock. You know what? Don't wait for a widespread famine. Don't wait for the mass murders, or don't wait for the ritualistic murders like Kayla and her family had to go through. Because if you do, you'll see that that's not even enough. When you don't have the lexicon and dialectics of going free, when you're not honest with your children about the world we live in. There's a little group of people that a lot of other people, they like to talk about them all day long. They give their children a lesson about the world that would shake you to the core. Everyone hates you. Everyone wants to destroy you, our entire people. And then they go out into the world and they dominate it. So they don't become, it's the opposite happens. Don't ever let the anti-whites speak to your children. Throw the TV out, literally out the window of the house. Kick through the front of the television, unless you are going to put things on there for them that are going to empower them so that they can be true heroes for our people. Never another word from the anti-whites to our babies. And there's no excuse good enough. Don't say, well, there isn't enough white positive children's books. Write them. Don't say there isn't enough music for our babies. Every time I turn on, it's some kind of anti-white. Make the music yourself. Shit's sake. Let's get over here. We have Mr. Bloom. The great Mr. Bloom, financially gifting $10. Thank you, dear brother. A big champion who, by the way, has come into going free like an absolute berserker. He and, of course, Richard Wagner doing magnificent works. Financially gifting $10, and we thank you there, Mr. Bloom. And he writes, Promethean hails to Jason, Jared, and Clarion. Jason, apologies, as you have answered this multiple times, but what is the name of the symbol that is displayed on the cover of your fantastic book, Go Free? It is called the Eindelen, and you will find out much more about it in Prometheus Rising. I will tell you that it is, and I do rarely say this so that people have to seek for the information, but it is the key to our freedom. Look into Prometheus Rising and you will see how it is the key to our freedom, the freedom of a Western kind, the recapturing of our destiny, the Eindelin. Technically, the shape is called a tetragonal trapezohedron, but it is in Prometheus Rising. It is called the Eindelin, and that's where it is from. Mr. Bloom back with another $50 financial gift. Let's get a big round of raucous emojis for the great champion, Mr. Bloom, coming in here at $60 financial gifts. He writes here, recently I went to my local forest, sat down at a bench next to a pond, and read Go Free for about an hour. It was one of the most peaceful experiences I have had in my life, and I can't thank you enough for it. It's the appreciation of things like that which really separates the nature of people from the destructive anti-whites. God bless. Well, God bless you, brother. Promethean hails. Thank you for those marvelous words. And that's a powerful testimonial, and that financial gift to White Wellbeing. Thank you so very much. We have Tall Kevin financially gifting $4 over here. Thank you, dear brother. He says, if the topic of a historical event comes up in which the truth is debated, would you mean debatable maybe? Is it okay to steer the conversation to informing them the bad guy is just an avatar for white people and has been used to guilt them? I think I know what you're asking there, brother. And it certainly depends on in most cases, but not in every case, on your company, who you're speaking to. And so if somebody says, I could imagine a generic scenario. Somebody says, oh, well, you care about white people. I heard you say the word anti-white, meaning that implies that you care about white people. So aren't you just like, and then they name some black and white photos. And then, yes, then you can say that is an avatar to demonize the concern for the well-being of the most vulnerable members of Western kind. And what does that tell you about the people who are using that as an avatar for those who care about the most vulnerable members? It tells you that if that is supreme evil, that's supreme good in their eyes, and of course they will recognize this right away, Tall Kevin, the good is inflicting harm on white people. It's white ill-being. And that is a very powerful thing. I've used it many times. So beautifully asked there. Tall Kevin is a great champion, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if Jared, if you saw, or Clarion, if you saw, this hero went to a city where there are very tall buildings and was up. Looks like we may have lost Clarion. And she's back.
That might be my fault. I'm talking to her on Telegram and joining her group and trying to get it all together so that we can answer the great people in our chat asking how they can join her group. So
fantastic.
Might have been my fault, but Clarion, welcome back.
No, it was definitely my fault. It was definitely my fault. Sorry about that.
All the time. It's quite all right. It's informal, freewheeling. Like you said, we have fun here. It's not all buttoned up and scripted, and it's real. And God knows people don't need more of that silly TV unreality. And as I say that, Clarion dips out again for a second. But what were you saying, Jason, about
Tall Kevin
out there? Tall Kevin.
Tall Kevin does many things for White Wellbeing. Is one of our great champions, and we celebrate everybody. Clarion was pointing that out earlier. There's nobody on a dais here. There's no rostrum, or with a dais. There's no rostrum for somebody to stand on, and everybody else looks on. We are all shoulder to shoulder, just like the ancient Spartans. And that is how we will recapture our destiny. There's no other way. One of our great champions is Tall Kevin. And he went... So as you can see, he was on a very tall building and for a bit of a vacation, and he decided to hang a no white guilt banner on his balcony, and immediately had the hotel calling, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, it's just 3 words. What's the big deal?" And he was able to use that excuse for the entire time And then he shared with us at the end of his stay, one of the, I guess it was the manager of the front desk, informed him that, oh, I looked up the website and it's fine with me. So works out well, folks. You can see if it was beautiful and visible to everybody who was walking on the street there. So thank you so much, Tall Kevin. And we also have a financial gift of $20 US from Peacecraft. Thank you so much. Writing here, I'm not sure how to word this, but could you speak to the imagery of Prometheus, please? The imagery. Wasn't he eternally punished for delivering fire to mankind, or is it a different Prometheus that is referred to? Well, that's a fantastic question, and thank you for asking it, because we just recently had somebody reach out to me and bring up one of those. And there are many interpretations of the story of Prometheus. And why are there many interpretations? Well, because people who want to just bring attention to themselves will come up with new interpretations, new iterations, and say, this is what I think Prometheus really means. And one of those examples is this idea that Prometheus represents some demonic figure. And no, this is simply not the case for the story Prometheus Rising, Take Back Your Destiny. The character in its original form, before you had these merchants come along and decide that they were going to try to make some money off new interpretations of it, that original story of Prometheus informs, to a degree, the Prometheus in Prometheus Rising. But I am rewriting I rewrite the character in Prometheus Rising. His full name is actually Prometheus Ithelia. And so if that answers your question, beautiful. If not, jump into the question widget and give me some more context, and I will do my best. We're getting ready to tap out, though. In the question widget, we have another one of our magnificents asking, and that is the Grand Slots, who's always in the trenches. Where are you going to find the trenches, folks? You're not going to find them in some forest somewhere, or where you are playing war for some day. That'll never happen, because you'll get scared and just turn your weapons right over when the Humvee shows up. But the trenches are in social media, and few are there more often than Slots, battling the anti-whites, battling to bring over brothers and sisters, our vague brothers and sisters, over to going free. And he writes here, I've had anti-whites gloating about, quote, owning the country, etc. I say they own nothing. Oligarchs do. And I have no fear, because whites have a future. And if they don't believe, that they are anti-white. Amen to that. Clarion, any thoughts on what Slots had to say there, and maybe the behavior and maybe how to interact with anti-whites in the coming weeks, months, when they're certainly going to be gloating. They're going to be riding high with this great victory of theirs. And same question to you, Mr. George, as I check over on Cash App to see if we have anything there.
I think that making sure that whenever you're dealing with an anti-white, that you are not working from the position of the foundation of their commentary to you. I'm trying to think of a way to explain what I mean. For instance, when they start talking about the Capitol riot, right? Like, I immediately, we have to get rid of their false equivalency of what happened at the Capitol building with a riot of all. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
You have to break down, because they always argue from a place of intellectual dishonesty. So keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind that their point is always to inflict harm on you. And also, for me, the most important thing is that I remember, quite honestly, if I'm online, I'm generally not even talking to them. I'm talking to the people who aren't talking. I'm talking to the people who are just reading. Because you cannot underestimate how powerful it is to have one person properly framing what's going on when you are speaking into an ocean of voices that are parroting the same anti-white garbage. So even if you think it's not worth it, I'm not going to change this person's mind. You're probably not going to change that person's mind, but just keep in mind that what you're doing is you are giving a tool to somebody who already thinks what you think, but doesn't know how to say it. And or B, you are saying what somebody else viscerally feels about a situation, because people viscerally feel the truth that we are good people, that we don't deserve the maltreatment that's heaped on us, etc. But they don't really know how to articulate that because the language has been robbed from us. So seeing somebody else articulate truth permits them to see their own thoughts in the three-dimensional world, where they're like, oh, that's what I've been feeling. So never underestimate the power that you have merely by saying something that's true to an anti-white, because of the people who are reading.
Very well said, Mr. George.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add with the frame thing that it really is about the frame first. If you have that as a container, as a basic way to understand and orient yourself in the world and your relationships to others, and those balances between times to have boundaries and defenses and times when it's appropriate to have openness and generosity, then through that frame, you can learn certain things and digest it and then understand it better. Or if you're a communicator, communicate that outwardly. A lot of people think because I've made certain videos about cultural touch points, maybe bits that touch on a little bit of history, a little bit of folklore and mythology. It's funny to me. Sometimes they'll see a video or two and think that I'm some expert in these things. And I tell people, I'm not an expert in these things. I'm not well studied in these things. I wish I had more time to read and learn, and hopefully I have years ahead of me to continue doing that. But I'm by no means someone who's a specialist in any of those things, and it's not appropriate to introduce me as a scholar or any kind of expert on art or mythology and fairy tales or anything like that. I just have a frame. I have the correct frame, and then I'm able to learn some things that interest me along the way, and as I'm learning, share those things and make sense of them within that frame.
Beautifully said.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Beautifully said. And I think before we get the final thoughts, we're blank over here, so we didn't miss anybody.
Just, you know what? I don't want to cut you off, Jason, but I just want to say, because it does go along with something we said before and something you say often, and it goes along with what you said about how Clarion would likely be much more effective in front of a group of 100 people than maybe some other type of guy in our thing, general thing, who might try to at first dazzle people with all of his historical facts. Is that, folks, you don't have to be intimidated. You don't have to think you have 5 years of graduate school type work in front of you to learn U.S. history and European history before you can utter a word. That's the beauty of what's going on, and particularly what Jason's done with Going Free. It's a frame, as I was saying before. So you can learn those things if it interests you. Certainly to buoy yourself, we'll use that word again. I encourage people to find things that nourish their mind and their spirit, but it's not like there's a high threshold to entry in terms of character. But if you have the right character, there's not a high threshold to intellectual. I might get heady sometimes, and people think I'm a certain way, and everyone has their own personality, but really, I'm really not into a lot of those content creators that just want to talk highfalutin philosophy all day, and it's unmoored, to use another one of Clarion's words, with anything else. And it's just to act as if they're about to charter some new political philosophy out of nowhere but it's really just an exercise in theory that really isn't applying to anything right now. This is helping people's lives, helping people come back from drug abuse, from thoughts of suicide, as many of you know, in real time, right now, helping people on the ground. Or if you're an artist, more like I am, you're creating things. You're helping create book projects, or in my case, often make music now that is contributing to a growing culture. And there's a vitality to that. So that's where the work is being done. But I wanted to reiterate, Jason, and again, sorry to cut you off, but it is important and it kind of underscores everything we've been talking about. Please don't be intimidated and think there's a high barrier to some kind of intellectual threshold. You do not have to have a graduate degree in history or be able to know all these different European folk tales or all these facts about American history before you can start to defend your people. You're in the moral right now. You just have to have the right frame and kind of clear the cobwebs from your head and undo the pathogens that are in there. And then you're fine. There's no facts. You can know all the facts. You can know none of the facts about history. It's secondary to it. It's nice and it supports it, but it's by no means necessary for you to begin advocating for the health and well-being of your people. You don't need to know a certain amount before you can open your mouth and defend the health and well-being of your people.
Well said. I wanted to mention here before we get final thoughts that Real Eyes wrote a little while ago. Thank you for your words just now. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that today. I've been very depressed to the point of despair lately. So we definitely are making a difference in people's lives. And thank you for writing that testimonial. It's very meaningful because you're definitely not the only one. You were just the bravest one who was willing to admit it. So thank you so much. Natarific did ask, when does the artist edition of Prometheus Rising come out? I think it's going to be later this year. I'm going to first work on the audio book. The artist edition is going to be magnificent, though. And I think that's just about it for those questions. Yes. So it has been, as it always is when we have Clarion on, absolutely epic. I always get numerous messages afterwards about this young lady. You have her back again. She's wonderful. And especially that time, I don't know if you all know this, but I think somebody cut it out and made it into a clip. I don't think I have it though. I think maybe HB did, where a Clarion became very impassioned one show, and she just tore into the anti-whites fiercely, the way that only a white woman can, and we love her for that, and all of what she does in service to white well-being. And we're going to have you more often, dear lady. And please tell folks any final thoughts you have on anything we said today. Take all the time you want. And again, mention your Telegram group again. And then we will pass it over to Mr. George.
Be nice. Be nice to the people who are just coming in out of the cold, because they're like whiplashed. So please, please, please. Show mercy and compassion and light the path to the truth for the new people who are coming in from we're like a refugee camp, really, I feel like. So and keep the faith in the truth that we are destined to reclaim who we are. And that's everybody can work on that every day. And it doesn't have to be anything spectacular, if you will. Like, it doesn't have to be something that you would put on a resume of white well-being activities. I know that, I wonder if I could find it. On the 6th, we were just kind of like all on the edges of our seats. Like, everybody I know, myself, everybody I know, we were just kind of like wondering what was coming next and what was coming after because anybody who understands the regime knew that they were not going to permit this to stand without serious retribution, right? So I think it was the next day everything started to come down on the people who had been there. And here we go. I'll just read this. I'm just like, I haven't prepared this. This is a note that I wrote to a friend on the 7th. I said, I'm going to bed. I was thinking about today, which feels like a strange day, that things may have shifted. So this is my day, and it was a good day. I gave a 3-hour class on history, had a conversation with a neighbor at the grocery store where I supported the people who did I supported the MAGA rally people. Became embittered about Trump and the actual now, not in the future state of my nation. Whipped up people on Facebook against the state. Worked with my family to order the proper chickens and turkeys for delivery. Healed a rift between my children. Had a normal family dinner and sunrise coffee conversation with my husband. Had fun in the car driving to their activities. Involved cheering up Eldest with loud singing of Terrible Song Celebration by Kool and the Gang. I don't know what you have thought about the last couple of days, but my conclusion is that we are going to win. And then the next morning I said I made that list right before I went to bed because I felt myself starting to feel emotionally and internally chaotic after that explosive day and reactive to the happenings of that day. But when I made that list of what life is like because of and also in spite of the power of our enemies, I felt better because I can see that just one willing mom can do things to push back against our enemies. And that pushback comes both in directly reacting to them by exposing them to our captive kin, as well as continuing to build a good family, which leads to a good community, which leads to a good society. And I am not the only person who did those kinds of things that day. Many, many others did the same kinds of ordinary things that very day. And when I remind myself of all of that, I can pull back all of it together and know that we are going to win.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. Mm-hmm. It tracks with something I've been saying often now, and this is the silver lining of everything going on. I encourage people to keep this in mind. I know it's tough out there, but everything we're experiencing right now are the exact ingredients that have caused Western renaissances in the past. So please keep that in your mind and in your spirit, because we can be people who spearhead such a renaissance. So, Clarion, thank you so much for being here today. For anyone on DLive and YouTube chat right now listening live, I actually, with her permission, I put Clarion's channel. See, I was a little confused because I usually join Telegram groups directly, and then people send screenshots, but sometimes the interface looks different whether you're on a certain type of phone or this type of phone or on a desktop. But essentially you go to what I just put. If you scroll up a little bit, I put her link to her channel. When you go to her info, regardless of what kind of device you're on, you'll see some kind of chat bubble icon, and you click the chat bubble icon, that'll take you to her group, and then you can interact with the people there. I actually just joined myself. I was following the channel for a while, but I was not in the group. The group is where you can interact. Again, it's like a text thread, kind of like how we're all talking right now in these live chats. So hope that helps. I know that there were some people who were very inspired by your message and your work, Clarion. You're being a role model and wanted to get more in touch with you and see what kind of folks are in your group. So we hope that helps. And again, if you're listening in replay, it should be on our websites as well.
Mm. Thank you guys very much.
Of course, yeah. And then anyone, for me, my site is thegreatorder.com. That is where everything that I do goes through. It's a catalog of my work. I mentioned Jason and I share the afterparty.tv. That's a catalog of these shows, and we archive everything there. But those shows, videos, and all of the things that I do and ways to contact and just to see everything I've done or wondering about social media links, thegreatorder.com. But please join mailing lists on our respective sites too, especially with what's going on social media. WPQ magazine published my most recent poem a few months ago, and I like to give Tony the exclusive. But now, since a few months have passed, I think I'm going to soon, in the coming days, publish that poem. So now all can see whether you purchase that magazine or not. I still encourage you to purchase it if you haven't. But it's called Spring Singing, even though we're in winter right now. I might give you a little taste of spring. Every poet has to write his ode to the open fields and the blooming flowers and the ever stronger sun in the spring. So that was my attempt at it. So you'll see that. And I'm working on the next song. So always doing cultural things. Tony from that publishing house also tells me that our shared project, the Folk Book, of which Jason here is also a contributor, 10 advocates from around the world and content producers from around the Western world to answer the question in their own words, what does it mean to be a people? So there's some essays in there. I actually wrote a story, beautiful hardcover coffee table book that keeps selling out. We have the same problem Laura has with her Grandma Towler's tea. We have that good problem, but we've gotten a lot of support. And now that the holidays are over, we're going to be able to replenish these supplies a little more quickly. Tony was telling me in an email last night. So even if you go to the site and you see that it's on pre-order, just go do that. And there should be a shipment that we're getting in within a week or two. And if you order now, you should be able to get it by the turn of the month, late January, early February. But that is all for now. Oh, I should say just very briefly, and it tracks very well with the language work that Jason's doing. Tomorrow, Learning in Public returns. John Bruce Leonard of Arctos and himself an author and I had a bit of a holiday break, but now we're back for our show, a little more salon style kind of a stream. We're welcoming Semi Agag, who's been a friend here for a while on tap, but first time John and I are talking to him. I can't wait to get those two talking. You know that they're two intriguing minds, very perceptive people. John has a great love of language, being an editor and an author. Semi Agag works in a lot of modalities around branding and communication and language in a broader term than just spoken and written language. And Semi Agag is doing really interesting work, if you're not aware, that, it's a thorn in the side to all this progressive, postmodern, anti-white nonsense that nothing has any meaning. He actually is demonstrating that everything has meaning and everything communicates boundaries and in and out, even animal markings. So we're going to talk to Semi Agag and pick his brain about what he's doing with that. And from there, talk about how it applies to what we talk about here and reclaiming meaning, reclaiming proper boundaries for your life, and going against this whole nihilist, relativistic worldview, if you can call it a worldview. I call it an anti-worldview that proliferates right now from the media organs and from the professors at universities, poisoning people's minds. So it should be a fascinating show, and again, it tracks very well with the kind of dialectical work that Jason does. So a nice little cross-pollination between all the kinds of things that we do. So hopefully you can join us. That's at 1 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern time, which is 6 in the UK. You can go to my website right now and go to the post under the pinned music post for more information.
Fantastic, Jared. Excited about that and excited about this show here today. It was fantastic being able to appear with the two of you, two wonderful people, two people I love dearly, and fantastic being with all of you here with us over the course of the show today at TAP. Everybody who participated in the conversation, a big thank you to all of you, and a bigger thank you to everyone who financially gifted over the course of the show. We'd like you to participate by conversating. Is how you're going to begin to sharpen your skills. Remember, going free is a practice, so getting into the live chat, having conversations. But if you're new, you can just sit back and be a wallflower and learn by osmosis, perhaps, and grow with us. A big thank you to our moderators today for helping to keep the channel safe and keep our environment clean of the kind of people that we don't want in our community, folks who are not ordinary Westmen in any way, shape, or form, folks who are either screwed up in some way or are anti-whites here just to make us look bad. Happens all the time. But having said that, it was another marvelous tap, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again next time.